Kathleen, you're not driving. I hope that means you're home.
I'm home. Yes,
Good.
I am home. It's pretty exciting.
Yay.
Nice to see you, Kathleen.
Nice to see you all. Hi,
You
Scott,
too.
David.
Okay, I think we're live on YouTube. I've got closed captioning. I'm ready to go.
Great. We'll get started. We'll call the meeting to order. And I want to welcome everybody and remind you, if you're able to be on video, it's always preferred. If you're not able, we certainly understand and just are thrilled that you're here tonight. We had hoped to be in person and fully expected in June that we would have been in person this week. And we really felt that it wasn't, given where the numbers are and given what's going on with the Delta variant, that it wasn't appropriate for us to be getting back together in person. And so for this meeting and almost definitely next month, we will be virtual. And then we'll kind of get our advisement from the town and we'll talk amongst ourselves and make a decision about how to finish out the rest of the year. But as soon as we feel it's safe to go back in person, that is definitely the hope and the wish that we're able to do that. We have a nice space available to us at the senior center that does have more room and would allow us to sit at pretty good distances, and we'll try and figure out how we can get there. Pam, do you want to speak for a second?
Sure. What am I?
Welcome, Pam. I think you had some news you wanted to share with us.
Oh, yes. So I am sad to say that I'm going to be, unfortunately, having to resign from the board. I've taken on a new position for work that is actually, I'm going to be the clinical director at Branford Counseling. So this position has prepared me very well for that. And unfortunately, their board meetings are the second Tuesday of the month in the evening. So it just conflicts completely. But I want to say that I would love to continue to be in contact with the board and helpful to youth and services however I can, because I really value all the work that's going on and hope to, be able to share what we're learning and doing over there in Branford and hopefully, share best practices. So thanks everyone for allowing me to be on the board for these past few years.
It makes us very sad. It makes me very sad personally because there have been times I couldn't make it to the meetings, and you've been such a wonderful stand-in for me, and I really appreciate that. But I've also really come to value all your contributions, both on the executive board and also in the bigger board meetings. And I will miss you, and we will all miss you. But I wish you the best of luck, and I'm sure everybody else does as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Did the neighborhood proud.
Are you guys neighbors?
That is a pretty powerful neighborhood that you have there.
You better believe it. Yes, a lot of clout in this neighborhood.
Hard to get into that neighborhood. They don't let anybody in.
But yeah, and I just thank you, Pam, for everything that you've done and the support for the agency, the support for me. It's really appreciated. And like David said, sorry to see you go. Happy for you, and happy for Branford Counseling. I think you'll be a great asset there.
Now that does mean that there's an opening on the executive board. And how are you, Robert? You're just in time to hear about that. But so there's an opening on the executive board. There may be, in fact, 2 openings on the executive board. So, you will be notified if we don't have anybody that volunteers. You may be volunteered, but no, seriously, if you have any interest, our bylaws do state, I'm pretty sure that you have to have been here for a year on the board already. We may end up having to waive that depending on interest, but it's a wonderful executive committee run by Scott. But Andrea and I are on it at this point in time, and I don't believe that Kristen's going to continue to stay on in that capacity, and obviously Pam's not going to be able either. So if you have any interest, please reach out to me, reach out to Scott if you want to know any more about it. It really it costs you an extra hour and a half of your month, and you get a very different level of feeling of involvement, to be very honest with you. And so if you're looking for a way to step up your involvement just a little bit but get a lot more out of it, I really encourage you to consider it.
Scott, is it still being held at 4 o'clock?
So we're doing 4:30 Zooms Tuesday prior to the board meeting.
I haven't been here a year, but when I have, I'd be interested.
Awesome. Yeah, we were looking at your start date, just so you know. So no,
Great.
if anybody has any interest, please let us know. And like I said, if we may find that that we actually have to wiggle on the start date requirement a little bit, because we have to have a full executive board.
Yeah, I would probably be able to rejoin now that my office location has changed. And once a month, because I'm in Middletown now,
Oh,
so,
great.
and I'm half time at home, so it could all fall in place perfectly.
Great.
Yeah, so I'd be willing to do that.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. Happy to have you back.
Yeah,
All
we gotta
right.
cover for these deserters, you know? How dare you be promoted and stuff? Shameful.
All right, and I'm going to move the meeting along. We have a pretty good agenda today, so I'm going to turn it over to Molly for citizens' comments. See if there are any.
No citizens.
Okay, then I would like a motion to approve the minutes from our June 8th meeting, way back then.
So moved.
That's Beth, and a second, Kathleen. Any discussion? Okay, then let's move to a vote, and all in favor,
Aye.
all opposed? All right, it carried unanimously. And as soon as Molly's done recording the vote, we're ready for correspondence.
Okay, I did send an email out earlier with Jake's thank you note attached to it. It was a really nice note, but I knew we had a packed agenda, so I wanted everybody to have time to really read it and recognize his thanks. When he came in to drop off the note, he was really happy. It was a couple days before he left for UConn, and even underneath the mask, I could see his huge smile. He was very excited, looking forward. He decided now he's going to be a public health major. Public health, I think, in political science, double major. So he was really excited.
It was a beautiful note, and just so heartfelt. Really, really special to have him on the board.
Agreed.
And he couldn't ever do anything just short or, and I love that. I mean, I just, when we got the note, I saw the note, it's just so Jake.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
and I hope everybody has a chance to read it, because it really is worthwhile. And he did, as he often does, put his heart and soul into it.
Yeah, it was hand delivered.
All right, at this point, are there any other correspondence? So let's move on to Andrea, to the treasurer's report, please.
Hi, it's good to see everybody. Pam, congratulations, and I'm going to miss you. There is $160 in the Sunshine Fund, and members may drop off their voluntary donation to the Sunshine Fund at the Madison Youth and Family Service Office. Thank you.
I think everybody's been through a cycle of requests for that, but basically we use the Sunshine funds to pay for well, a senior gift when our senior graduates and heads off the board. Sometimes if there's a sad event, we'll send a card or flowers or something like that. So it's really used to kind of take care of the board itself. It's not used for Madison Youth and Family Services business, and it's totally voluntary. If you want to contribute, great. Andrea told us how to do that. Scott, I think we're up to the director's report.
All right, everybody. It's so nice to see all the familiar faces. Thank you all for coming on back. We've got quite a bit to go through tonight, so we'll just appreciate your patience and whatever you have for attention, whatever brain cells are left at this time of the day. Really just appreciate you sacrificing a few of them for us. Typically in our agenda, we do the student report before we get to the director's report. I'm really excited for you guys to see our pairing for this year. And Rebe, who did join us for the last meeting of the last school year, is now here as our junior rep and joining Darian. And when I'm done, be happy to hand it off to them for their first student report. Going to expect great things from them, and I think they're going to expect great things from themselves. So a lot to go through. I'm going to start walking you through a few things. Honestly, it took me a bit of an effort just to get it pared down to what I could share with you tonight that I thought was important and digestible. It's really been quite a busy summer. There's a number of things that are important for you to know that are happening here at the agency, but also there's opportunities, a number of opportunities for board members to be a little bit more involved, not just with us, as David was talking about on the board, but getting some input on some bigger issues, bigger things for us, and more involved with some town advisory committees. And I'll get into those later on in my report. I'm happy to report to you all. So as I left you last year, we had 2 openings in our Positive Youth Development Division. So Derek Cornwell and Katie Bowles had both resigned and moved with their families out of state. I guess that's what we do to people. They get burned out and then they go as far as they can. Just kidding. So we were going into this past summer still recruiting, needing to hire for those 2 very critical positions, and happy to report we offered Justin Ziegler, who some of you might be familiar with. He is and continues to be the youth pastor at the First Congregational Church, so a pretty strong Madison tie. He also had a background, the previous position, and doing prevention work at another YSB. So just a really energetic, vibrant, creative, empathetic, kind. I mean, we interviewed him twice. He just knocked it out of the park twice. So we were really excited, that he, came out for the position and really impressed. And we were happy to offer him the position at the end of the process. So, and he started. So he came on, I think, early August, like August 2nd or 3rd was his start date. So he started orienting even before the year got going, and he's hit the ground running. And excited for you to meet him at a later board meeting, if you haven't met him already. We also filled the part-time position that Katie Bowles had done so well with, and that went to Amy DeLucia Fieri. And Amy also somebody who's been around Madison and doing a lot of mindfulness programming with the schools. So comes with that background and an interest in doing all things prevention and support of youth. Great energy, another like somebody who just knocked it out of the park at every point that we talked with her. I'm really excited for her. She came on just about a week before the school started orienting. We used to have that part-time position tied in with our peer helper trainings, and what we've done this year. So Peg Butler, who's thank God still with us, is still leading that program. And Melissa Boletto, who is our assistant director for prevention, is also joining her. So we still have a pairing doing the peer helper training, and Melissa and Justin are doing the peer advocate training, and that's the high school version of that program. And really a cool opportunity for Melissa, who really helps to kind of bridge those 2 programs. They got to go from middle school to high school And we're hoping helps to create some continuity and consistency between kids as they're going from Polson into the high school and hopefully staying with our programming. Really excited about that and excited to tell you all about that.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
Could you spell her last name?
So it's Delucia Ferry, right? Molly, F-E-R-R-I, at least for the ferry, and Delucia, D-E-L-U-C-I-A. Is that correct, Mom?
Fury, F-E-I-R-I, you said.
F-E-R-R-I, yep.
Oh, okay. And you said positive youth development, but then also prevention. Melissa.
I know, I use those.
Yeah, is there one better than the other? I'm not calling you on that. That was not.
Yeah, no. It's so like I use those interchangeably. We refer to our prevention staffing. Technically, we refer to them as positive youth development.
Okay.
So that encompasses like Melissa's division, and that's our peer advocates, peer helpers, a lot of our school-based programming.
Perfect. Thank you.
And sad to report, and as also kind of reflected that we're here back on Zoom, just a kind of a COVID update. The town has drawn back on some of its restrictions, brought back that we're wearing masks when we're in all town offices. The town's going to require vaccination proof, if not weekly testing. I believe by in the next 2 weeks. The start date I think is within the next 2 weeks. So just know that that's going on. It's impacting how we're running meetings and groups. Not as bad as it was during the darkest days of the pandemic, but definitely a hit. To have to go back a bit from where we were. And again, I imagine a lot of you are experiencing some of the same things. So just important for you to know that piece. We had a very productive summer, I'm pleased to say. And one really big piece, as I was leaving you last year and coming into this year, we wanted to run some focus groups with some board members. I was very interested in diving in a little deeper on data and the kind of things people from the board, and I think as might also then be reflected in the community. So I'm not going to go into detail on that one. I really think that deserves its own discussion, and hoping I can carve out some more time at a future board meeting. So the focus groups were very impactful, and I had more conversations with my staff around data. It was a topic at our statewide association meetings. It's really big all the way across, because I think YSBs in general really need to be able to collect data that tells the story and helps show the effectiveness and the importance of the work that we do. So that's my teaser. I'm hoping that we can, as I said, make some more time, and I can share with you the feedback that I received from the two focus groups that we ran. And then, there's going to be changes this year coming to our director's report, and then coming, I think, in terms of how you see us reporting data and sharing information with you all, as well as the community, and really excited to get going on that aspect too. We ran three major programs over the summer. Our community services volunteer program, that's one that we've run in the past. Again, that involves youth where they're signing up and going through a volunteer training program. It's a one-time orientation to being a volunteer. And then basically we're organizing and running and scheduling opportunities for them to sign up throughout the summer. So it works well that the kids who want to volunteer to, say, do a food drive with us on a day, and not have to commit themselves to 2 hours every week, because every kid's summers are different. We were able to run that program. It was more challenging, again, because of the pandemic restrictions, but our staffing being, we were still low on staffing with those 2 openings, and then trying to get to a lot of things. So, and I can give you more details. You'll see more of that when we get our director's report, our summer's stats to you. So you'll see some of that. We can talk more on that one. We were able to run our summer youth employment program. Again, that probably was a little lighter version. I think we had I want to say we had 5 youth placed in 5 different positions and throughout the summer. And that, again, a grant-based program where the town gets reimbursed through the grant to pay for these, for the wages of these youth to work in these businesses, and can give you more information about that at a different time. And we piloted 3 social skills groups this summer. This was something that we had reached out, and credit to Angela and the clinic staff on this one. We were paying attention to what the needs were, talking to the people in the school system, if there was something, a niche or something, a gap that we could fill going into the summer. And surprising, the feedback we got was social skills. Where could we help support? In some cases, these are special education students who maybe needed to continue to work on some of these skills, and kids who maybe have been out of school, and being remote learners. So we started to think on a very grand scale with I think there were like 5 or 6 groups we wanted to run. And then, as I'm sure you can imagine, with the referrals coming in and the age ranges being sort of all over the place at the beginning. But happy to say we piloted this program. We served kids between the ages of 5 and 15, excuse me, and 10 students altogether. And these were clinical groups. So these are social skills, with a set curriculum and goals and reimbursable. So these were all done through our clinic where there was a fee attached if not covered by insurance. So glad that we got that off the ground. And we'll leave it there in terms of the detail. And when the clinic comes on for their report out to the board, I'm sure Angela and we'll speak more detail around that and what we want to do for more groups. One program that I really was, I keep using the word excited, but I guess I am, I'm too excited. Over the summer, with the Recovery Act funding opportunities, we felt like we were just trying to pay attention to every little need that we could. And if there was something we felt like we could utilize that funding for, we tried to match them up. So we did actually request and receive funding on Taylor Scalia, who's our school-based clinician at Polson, in the past has not been budgeted to work in the summertime I think we had like maybe 5 hours a week left on our budget line. Anyway, we were able to request and secure funding to expand her position to full-time throughout the summer. And she was one of the people, her and our parent support counselor, Frankie, how am I blanking on Frankie's last name?
Esposito.
That's what I thought. Okay, I didn't want to screw it up. So Frankie and Taylor were the people running those social skills groups. We got funding for Taylor to have her work full time. The other request that we made and received was to do some back to school programming that was specific to these times. So we recognize, and we're hearing from parents a lot of anxiety, that they were anticipating going into August and then obviously transitioning back to school. And I'd had some conversations with Gail Dowling-Hench, who's the assistant superintendent, and we were talking a lot in terms of like where students were, and a good number of students last year were remote for a good chunk of the year. So we knew also through our social services connections with families, and again, input that we were getting from families, that finances were also an issue. So we came up with a concept. First, we wanted to put some things onto our webpage that parents could use as information, tips, articles, things like that. So that was one thing. And then we wanted to create some awareness, but also then help parents. So the program, which we wound up naming Be Cool for School, was funded through the American Recovery Act funds. And we came up with the concept of gift certificates. So we would provide people with $75 gift certificates to an outlet mall. So that would be for like back to school clothing. And the idea that we were trying to promote was making that that back to school transition, that more of an event, something that you could then, celebrate. So what we all used to do, like it was an anxiety, provoking process getting your kids back to school, but it was also kind of enjoyable. You took them out for shopping and, so the idea being that we would provide $75 gift certificates to the outlet malls. And also we worked with a couple of local hair salons to purchase gift certificates for haircuts and salon treatments. The program was a real hit. We served, we did 70 of these. We still have some money left on that within that program, so people can still apply for it. But we served 70 families under that program. And I'll share with you some other data, but in order to be eligible, you had to apply and either attest to that you had concerns about anxiety getting in the way for your child, or a financial burden, or both. So either way, if if it was just financial, that was fine. And it was really for us just to be able to get a sense of what was really driving some of the concerns for families. And we still ran our typical back to school program. That's something that we've done every year. And so a lot of those families we reached out to, so if they were already signing up for a backpack program, we were informing them about this other opportunity. So this year we gave 55 students with backpacks as well as gift certificates just in that program alone for back to school supplies. We used to fill up the backpacks with back to school supplies, and what we've learned over time is that parents really need and desire the flexibility to get their own materials. So like, giving crayons to a number of kids for kids who maybe don't need crayons. And that's just really the most obvious example, but it just was more effective and I think more appreciated and probably better utilized, quite frankly, to give people gift certificates. And I think we to Walmart within that program. And running the program, and I should also mention, this was the first time that we were able to do something that was a little more high tech. So we worked with our technology department so people could actually fill these applications out online. And that allowed us then to collect a little bit more data on what their circumstances were. We kept the applications very simple. We didn't want people having to send paychecks and things like that to be eligible to be school for school, because it was just, that becomes an obstacle. It stops people. It's too complicated. It's too stigmatizing, which is why we came down and just said, just having people attest to these things and give us some very basic information in order to be eligible. And we feel like the people who did apply, we feel really good. We're very much and being accurate and honest about their need. So I'm gonna,
does that fall under Catherine's organization or group, or is this
it did? Yeah, so that fell under community support and social services. So that's Catherine and Crystal. And let me see if I can just. So just to give you some visuals for how this, who used it and where it went. I wasn't too sure how helpful this would be going into charts, but I think in terms of a visual, so the blue is the people who apply stating a financial need only. The red is anxiety only, and then the green is both anxiety and financial. So just in terms of a glance, the financial need was something that was stated by the vast majority of people who applied for this assistance. The other thing that kind of stood out to me, and maybe not as much in the chart, although you do see the blues for the financials, they get bigger and bigger in terms of the grades going up. And to keep in mind, so K through third, that's 4 grades, fourth and fifth, obviously 2 grades, 3 grades at Polson, and 4 grades again at the high school. So thinking, larger groups of students and based on how many grades are included. But, it seemed the financial needs, as the students got older, the financial needs were greater. That's one thing that stood out. And pretty even in terms of the numbers across all the grades. And you don't see this as much on the chart, but we had 17 total at the elementary level, 13 total at the lower middle, 16 at Polson, and 24 at the high school. The numbers, and they're low numbers, but the numbers were pretty evenly distributed for the anxiety all the way across the board. But just in terms of the percentages, 76% of the applicants at the elementary level were either were strictly a financial issue or financial and anxiety. 84% at the lower middle school, 75% at the upper, and 87% at the high school. So again, just driving home, that I think finances tend to be a pretty large issue for people, at least evidenced by this particular program. We're going to continue to look at other ways that we can use the recovery grant and access it to serve families. That's something, obviously, that's part of what we should be doing. And we'll talk more about, how the board can get more involved just with this with the recovery grant and opportunities there too. I'll catch my breath. Does anyone have any questions about that program or anything in terms of where that I've discussed so far? Y'all still with me? All right. So, and just to highlight a big piece for, where we were going over the summer and where we want to go this year is awareness, general awareness around our programs. So you might, if you're friends with us on Facebook, you might have seen quite a bit more content going on there over the last few weeks as, our programming has ramped up. And we're trying to drive more attention back to our webpage and putting a lot more content on our webpage. And those like tools and resources and helpful articles, hopefully more news about us, taking advantage of that as a medium and a means to, help the public. Even if we're not talking or interacting with us directly, they can get things on our webpage. And it always, so it's like, you're trying to renovate your home while you're living in it. So as much attention as we can get to that and still run everything we're doing, it's everything's still a work in progress. But we've made some big strides. Sharon Clark, credit to her, she's our office manager, and we've made her sort of our media guru. So she's our point person on Facebook and webpage, and that's really helped. So like where you have one person accountable, obviously to do that particular piece, then it's not something that falls through the cracks, which quite honestly is what happened. So another thing that came up over the summer and is an ongoing topic. We as an agency, the Madison Youth and Family, we were approached by Peggy Lyons and asked if, we wanted to be more included in the planning renovations for the Academy School renovation. So as you might all recall, Academy at one point was considered for a community center. There's still a good deal of interest in the public to have that building be used for that purpose. And there was a time back maybe a year or so ago where it was defined as a community center with beach and rec, kind of the town department that would go into that building and manage the programming going on there. Given our ongoing requests and attention brought to our space needs, Peggy reached out and asked if we wanted to be more included in that renovation. And her justification was it may help to kind of buoy that building as it gets going as a community center. And really our programming, beach and rec programming, are really direct services to the community and certainly fit with the purpose of that building. So I was brought into a couple of meetings and a part of a few walkthroughs and ongoing discussions about how we might be included in that building. Some of the challenges were For our needs, we need enough space. It's got to be designed for our purposes. And if we're going to be included in a building that's also a multi-purpose building, we need controlled and locked access to some of our more sensitive functionings, like our social services and our clinical services being, two of the big ones. We need privacy, and we need to be able to, create spaces that are really conducive to those functions. So how that fits in around everything else that you might put into a community center, and where, for those of you who maybe might remember this, if you were, interested in this when it was all going on, you're saving money if the building essentially, if it's renovated and the rooms are not drastically changed. So those are soft construction costs compared to hard construction costs if you're having to remove walls or build walls. So it's primarily broken up into classrooms, and in a community center model, those classrooms would remain basically classrooms, very similar to what they are now. If we go in there, what you'd have to do to create spaces for us would be more hard construction, because we need offices and spaces that are, again, consistent with our needs. There's been a lot of discussion about this. These meetings are ongoing. I've been consistent to say, I think if we get the square footage that we need for our programming, that if the spaces can be designed for our needs and we can control, the portion of our operation as we need, then it can fit. Not that you'd get us all on one floor. I think, I was hoping you could get us all on one floor, but then that would also take up too many spaces that would cause other reasons or purposes for that building to be co-opted more. So I'm trying to stay true to what we need and still work and be flexible enough to fit in that building. I'll say this, and it was being recorded as a public meeting. I'm not in love with the idea that, as people debate the purpose of that building and whether you like it as a community center or not, or whether you like what goes into that building as a community center, to have us in the middle of that is not something I'm looking forward to. And quite frankly, when it first came up, that was my first response. But look, I mean, you've heard us talk about this, and hopefully that you understand and agree with this. We need space. We really have. We've been making it work, and as we go along. But even now this summer, even today, we're jockeying offices and we're doing all the things we always do. We had to find a bigger space to have a staff meeting because we all can't meet in our waiting room is too small due to COVID. So we had to find a space to have our staff meeting. We tried to go to Memorial Town Hall, but there was an arts group that had already booked the top floor. So, a part of my day and Molly's day was tracking down where we could find space to take my staff to have a meeting. And we did, it was fine. But again, these are things that, we would like not to have to deal with anymore. So if you hear of us being included or bandied about as a part of this project, it's true, we are. And glad to be a part of that conversation. I think it is challenging. There's some pluses and minuses to being a part of this, but I think on balance, if we get the space that we need, the raw amount of space, and it's designed to our needs, it ticks a lot of the boxes. It's a win for us, and I would say for the town. Any questions on that?
Did you say that in addition to possibly it being used as a community center, it would also be the new home of the Beach and Rec?
So, and that was the part of the purpose originally, or I shouldn't say originally, as it developed as a community center model. The obvious department to go in there and essentially have some staff spaces in there, but basically control and monitor and organize, coordinate what goes on in there would be Beach and Rec. And also there's a benefit too to the town, because the Beach and Rec staff right now their offices are at town campus. And so, and town campus is squeezed, space is an issue all over town department. So, it helps town campus central to have some of Beach and Rec programming and staffing go to the community center. So their offices would be there on the first floor. The concept that we've been talking about for the youth services is to have some space on the second floor, as well as some space on the lower level, which is the basement.
I think my only concern, Scott, would be that's a lot of traffic, and that could impede the desire to come to meet with your staff, because a lot of, especially kids, and I don't mean it in a negative way, but they see somebody they know creeping around the building they're supposed to go to, they start walking in the other direction because they don't want Jimmy to see them going into the side door, which everybody now knows belongs to the Madison Youth and Family Service.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that the building is now, small as it might be, there's not a lot of action right outside the door.
Yeah.
But now you're going to be kind of walking into a hallway where there's people getting beach passes and other people playing bocce, card games, possibly. Who knows? That's a lot of interact. That's the only concern I would have is, that's a big school, possibly a separate entrance for Madison Youth and Family, where it's not as open. I'm just thinking of myself at like Darian and Reeby's age. I don't know how willing I'd be to walk by a bunch of my friends who are signing up for lacrosse camps to see somebody at Madison Youth and Family Services.
So we deal with that issue now, and if somebody's coming here and they're again, it's about the stigma, about what it means to people to get help for a mental health issue or family issue or really a financial for anything. We're pretty upfront, with youth. Sometimes it's also with adults and parents who come to our building for different reasons. Our building as it is now is a multi-purpose building. So we make that very obvious. So youth come here all the time volunteering and being a part of different programs. So, we tell people that up front. So anyone who comes into our building isn't necessarily doing anything, that they don't have to share with people. The stigma is still the stigma. So I think, when we talked about when we have talked among our staff going into academy potentially, there is a design where we would have a separate access for our build, for our operations that we could use for people if they wanted to come in, just be more private about it, more discreet about it. But I think we're just going to be upfront with everybody. There's lots of reasons to come in and see us, and you shouldn't guess at any of those. And we're fine. When I talk to youth who come, in fact, I just had this conversation a couple of weeks ago with a young person who was coming to meet with me for clinical services. Just lie, make up whatever you want. That's okay. It's your private information. It's you're coming for your own purposes. Tell people what you feel comfortable telling them. But I can tell you, if I run into a friend going to the doctor's office and I'm embarrassed about why I'm going, I'm not telling my friend why I'm really there. And that's okay. I think it's your own information. You treat it as you can. And I think, and we all have to deal with that on our own terms. So I don't know if that helps, but that's kind of
No, it helps. I'm just, that would be my only thought on it when you asked.
Yeah.
Is that, like I've been out to town campus when Beach and Rec is hopping and there's 50, 60 people trying to sign up for the babies and me class or something.
Yeah,
it can get a little hectic and it's a larger group than you're used to seeing parading around your building now. That's all.
Yeah, no, it would be a very different atmosphere. And, in thinking that if the building succeeds well as a community center, so you'd have a number of activities going on there, and we'd have to get used to that. I think on the other side, and this is the part that makes me feel a little bit better about it, the opportunities that would be granted to us to partner with Beach and Rec staff on programming, partner with other agencies, other groups, there's that side of it too. So talk about addressing stigma and doing things that are more, really youth-oriented, youth-centered. I think there's a balance there too, and I think opportunities if we're smart and open to them.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, well, thank you. All right, so moving right along. Looking at this year, you're all going to be excited yourselves to hear it's a survey year. We do our biannual high school survey. It's going to be the same survey, the developmental asset survey that we've done in the past. That keeps us, getting very consistent data. We will add our own addendum to that. So there's certain things that we are going to want to ask that's not included on the survey. And of course, why not add to a 160 question survey to add a couple more questions that we just feel like we'd want to know. We are taking very deliberate steps this survey year, to address some of the concerns that have come up in past survey years. The first thing, and the feedback that resonated with us quite loudly, honestly, from the last time we did this, was that trust in the survey. What's happening to the data? Is it safe? We've talked with TJ, the principal salutary at the high school, and we've talked with some. I talked about this with our student reps and extensively with our staff. So we really want to hit that one hard. We want to get information to students, whether we're using homeroom news or other types of approaches that really speak to them and make it clear around the purpose of the survey, the importance of the survey, and the safety, security of the information that they're sharing. So we really want to address that one up front and clear. And we have. It's not that we haven't done that in the past, but we've really, I think, aside from a few announcements and things that we're doing, which may or may not resonate or get to every student, relying on then the whoever is at the in the class at the time administering the survey to read the instructions, which we don't always know are being done as consistently, or again, just are they resonating well enough with students that they feel safe and secure about doing the survey. So we just want to do it differently this year, and hopefully have the students report back to us that they felt better about the survey. I'm sure there's still going to be students who are going to have some reluctance, and hopefully we just get the good data we've gotten as much as we have in the past. So that's this year. You can look forward to discussions about the survey itself, and then being a part of the outcomes and looking at it. It's a big initiative for us to do suicide prevention work this year. I'm not going to say it's different than any other year. Again, with the anxiety, depression rates, the concerns that we keep hearing from youth and parents, one thing that we know that we can do that really targets safety and hopefully empowers youth to be more aware, more skilled, more comfortable, more capable to intervene on other youth that are struggling and may in fact be suicidal. So we've talked, last year, several of us trained under QPR, that stands for Question, Persuade, Refer. It's a suicide prevention model. It's one that we really love because it's simple, it's straightforward, and very effective. It's an evidence-based model. It's actually being taken by a number of states in terms of the go-to. There was actually I saw a bill last year that they were going to require QPR training for all for town municipalities. I don't think it went anywhere, but it stood out to me last year. The state of Connecticut was taking this model as sort of its bellwether go-to to require across states. So And we've done a few of these trainings now. They're really engaging and effective. And the model empowers and really promotes people to get involved. And so it's a good model. We want to train every single high schooler in QPR. And our approach to doing that, we've had discussions with TJ and with the health department, the health teachers. We think we can get a QPR training to almost every high schooler through their health curriculum. And it's the hour-long QPR training that we do, and we have a version of it that we've honed strictly for youth. Our hope is to get some of our youth that were trained last year to do QPR involved in that effort. We still have to figure out a way to get to. There'll be some of the upperclassmen that had health last year aren't going to be required to have it this year. So there will be a group of students who we won't be able to reach as a part of the health curriculum. But we think we can easily identify who they are. And then it'll be a matter of figuring out how we can get that training to them at some other point during their day. I've also connected with Catherine Hart at Polson. We don't really know how we're going to integrate this at Polson, but I'm looking forward to having more conversations with her to see where we can maybe get Polson more involved in this. There's definitely some other programming ideas and things that we're doing with Polson, and mentioned too about the mindfulness that Amy is bringing with her. Some of that training, we're going to get that to the elementary school level. So we're taking the QPR and just seeing where we can fit it. Right now, we're prioritizing the high school and feeling really good about that. And we're still going to be doing some community presentations with QPR. So if you haven't had a chance to go through any of those, you'll have opportunities throughout the year. We have one that's coming up that's really special and remarkable to us. We did a QPR training at the tail end of last year with a small group from the Church of the Latter-day Saints. Am I saying that correctly, Molly? And that's the church community that was directly impacted by the death by suicide of a youth, a high schooler last year. And so we connected with them to do the training. They responded. They, I think, really appreciated what they learned, and I think also what they were processing too at the same time. And we're going to bring that training back in October to a group where we got some of their youth, some of the church youth there involved in this effort. We're going to do a larger QPR training with the adults and the youth at their church in October, and we're really looking forward to that and wanting to bring it wherever we can. And talked a little bit about the awareness, that we're working on, and that's also going to be a theme throughout the year. Almost there. You all with me still?
Quick question.
Yeah.
What's the lowest age that QPR in its current form is intended for? Is there such a thing?
That's a really good question. You can really adapt the curriculum, really as low as you want it to go. I think I think you could adapt it pretty well at the middle school level. You probably would have to be very careful about how you handle it below that.
Okay.
It might just look like, helping children to recognize other children when they're in distress and bringing that, being supportive and bringing that to a teacher's attention.
Okay, thanks.
So the town is taking on a couple of things in which they would like more community input. The two big issues, one is the American Recovery Act money. And this, I think, is something that Peggy has been very interested in cultivating an arm into the community to help steer how some of that Recovery Act funding gets into the community. And I'm going to screen share again. See if I can. Here we go. So this is the Board of Selectmen have put together a charge for a committee that would help make it. put together a committee of residents, and we'll go into how it's put together, that would basically create a process to distribute funds directly into the community, and then be a part of, as they get applications from community members, they'd be a part of getting those applications and essentially determining where that funding would be best spent, and sort of judging between applications and giving feedback to people that are applying for it. So the charge, as it states, would create a plan that coordinates long-term community and economic recovery of Madison in the wake of COVID-19 public health emergency to fully restore the town government services, aid residents in recovery efforts, aid businesses in recovery efforts, determine emergency management needs in the face of future public health emergencies, and determine projects to move forward under the ARP funding. And you can read the rest. So as they were putting together ideas for how this committee would be composed, I did have a conversation with Peggy around, hoping that they would really dig into the existing commissions in the town, and specifically you all, the Youth and Family Services Board, as I'm representing you in that way. So as you can see, the town is going to ask for one representative from this board to serve on this ad hoc under that charge. It's a great opportunity. I'll tell you, we do have Andrea Aaron, who's serving on an ad hoc for the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. And maybe under the liaison report, Andrea, you can, if you're okay with just maybe sharing some of your experience with that ad hoc, just to help other people know what it's like. That might help people. So this isn't something we need a volunteer today for. This committee probably wouldn't really get to work until November, December, from the way things are shaping up right now. But it would be the responsibility of our board to nominate one of our members to serve on this particular ad hoc. Any questions on this ad hoc? All right, can I stop sharing this? All right, so I gotta bring up the other one now. All right, so the other ad hoc, as you all are likely aware, the marijuana became, the marijuana bill passed and will now be legal for retail distribution sales, coming into this year. So each town, each community has input to how their local ordinances, zoning, their town properties, town facilities, will handle this. There's also a provision in the bill and the law now that allows towns to take a small percentage of sales back from any sales of marijuana. The idea again with this ad hoc is to create a committee that would essentially look at the law and pull together input from the town. Madison essentially is going to have to choose whether they want kind of a hard line and maybe ban these businesses, and and whether it's the businesses themselves or people from growing. There's 8 separate types of marijuana licenses that you can have according to this particular legislation, this law. And I got to tell you, there's a lot that has to get sorted out. So the bill, which I think has its strengths and has its positives, I'll just tell you straight up, was a dud from a public health perspective. And again, I'll respect everybody in terms of how they feel about this. They were really weak on putting any limits on the potency, and in my opinion, very weak in terms of how they wanted to fund prevention efforts and getting some real assurances that funding was going to get to YSBs and other programs to help the prevention efforts and keeping this from young people. So that said, Catherine and I have talked extensively about this. And if you guys are paying attention to what's going on in other towns, some towns are going right away to ban and basically making a decision not to have anything to do with this. And that's fine. Guilford, there's a lot of, there was a presentation by their youth coalition day to their board to basically their board of selectmen, and really opposing Guilford from coming up with the opposition for Guilford to be a part of this at all. Catherine and I were talking about this, and I think our approach is a little different than that. The legislation's passed. It's banning it from Madison or banning it. That's the role we want to take. That we could certainly do that. We are very concerned about it, but I also feel like our role in this should be really one now to share our concerns, but also like we've got to come up with some solutions and deal with this directly. And if Madison residents want these businesses, if they want growers, and that's something that's important to the town, I think our best strategy would be to hear that, to partner with people who maybe want to be in these businesses, to work with us to prevent youth from gaining access, and really maybe partnering with us around prevention efforts very directly, which would be a very different setup if in fact, like for example, if we had a retail establishment, if you can imagine, if we're stuck having that, wouldn't it be great if you had one that had like huge posters in the windows that have a direct messaging to youth that, in terms of it not being healthy or not being cool or not being okay. I think our feeling is if it's coming here, if people want it, we want to partner with them to do it in the most healthy way, the most safe way for our youth and for our town. So to that end, again, our board will have an opportunity to nominate one of our board members to sit on this particular ad hoc. Again, this is something I'm not sure how quickly it's going to get going. It may be a month or so. They were just fine tuning this charge this morning at BOS. But it's a really, I think, important ad hoc, obviously. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting one in terms of serving. I didn't even mention it. So those licenses, those have impacts to zoning, to local ordinances, law enforcement. There is a representative on this from the police commission. I think there's just a lot of impacts from this. So wanted to let you all know that again, not a decision anyone has to make, but hopefully I've cultivated some interest. Any questions on those two ad hocs? Y'all can't wait, right? Thoughts and really, honestly, thoughts on our positioning ourselves the way that we are, rather than sort of straight up opposing, to essentially like partner, being more of the informer, educator, and really pushing for partnerships on this. How do people feel about that?
I don't
I
think
think
you
it's-
have a choice, Scott. I think that
Right.
with things coming down the pipe, if you're oppositional, then you're not going to win in other areas. That's life. You may not like the decision, but the decision was made, and I think your stance is a good one, because I would rather see business come into town, people get what they want, and our kids know the difference between. It's like a liquor store. I mean, it's there. I can go in there. You can't go in there. They're going to have to learn that. And the younger they are, the more learning they're going to get. So I think it's an effective stance.
I think it's very realistic, even if it's not ideal world. I think it's where we are. And hopefully we can have an impact.
Yeah, Agreed. Okay. And then if people have thoughts on that they don't want to share here, but want to reach out to me separately, please feel free to do that. Last but not least, you're all getting invitations to an event at Polson a week from Saturday. So this is the Demand Zero presentation of Finding Hope. This is a short film that was actually filmed in our office. They used our office as a site for some of the footage. It includes a local actress and director and people from town have been very involved in this whole project. This brings a message and a lot of awareness to the dangers of pressed pills. And I just saw a thing on this on the news before I came here. So I was watching, I was wondering whether this was something like Demand Zero had done, but it wasn't. They didn't mention Demand Zero at all. But look, the trend, the sad and scary trend, is that there are small groups and people that are basically creating pills that include fentanyl. And we're finding more and more where, sort of the stereotypical overdose might be considered somebody who's been progressively using substances and having an unfortunate overdose at some point. Now, what some of the trending is going towards, like young people, young adults, purchasing what they think are like Adderall pills or other pills and getting them, and they're including fentanyl and essentially overdosing on them immediately. So it's a concerning trend. And we were just talking about legalizing marijuana while all this is going on. But it's Demand Zero is headed by Lisa Dean, who's just been a huge community advocate for awareness around opioids and overdose. And some of you may be aware of her own story and own personal tragedy with dealing with this issue and her son. But she's turned it into tremendous community work. So if you are interested, this I think is not a long event, but one that I think is going to be very interesting and poignant. It includes the film, and then a panel discussion from various people that are representing different aspects of this, including our very own Catherine Barden. There'll also be a substance abuse provider, a counselor as a part of the panel, someone from the FBI, who I'm of course forgetting his name. I have too much information floating around in my head right now. And hope that you all are able to come out for some or as much of it as you can. 3:00, Saturday, the 25th. And we're co-sponsoring the event with Old Saybrook Youth Services, and hope to see you there. With that, very happy to introduce to you now. Can I move on in the agenda mercifully? All right. Very happy to introduce Reba Wall as our junior rep, and welcome back to Darian McMahon. And over to you guys.
All right, sweet. So before Darian has an outline, I don't have much to do today. I think I'm gonna let Darian pretty much just take over most of it. But it's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me, guys. And I'm super excited for this position. Again, I don't really have too much on the agenda just because I kind of wanted to get a feel for the meeting first and everything. But yeah, again, I'm so excited to be in this position with Darian. And yeah, I hope that next meeting I'll have some kind of ideas, circulating around. And yeah, and then I can bring those up and stuff. But anyways, for now, it's just hello and thanks so much for having me.
All right,
Welcome.
let's get started. What do you say? So over the summer, I took on a project with Katie Biner and Coach Becker. And it was a pledge for the sports teams. It was for pledging against sexual assault. So the original idea was to have a pledge that all sports teams can take. And then it kind of transformed into like a seasonal captains meeting where all the captains and head coaches of fall, winter, or spring sports, whatever season it would be, would have to attend a meeting. The meeting would include how to be a great leader for the captains, which I think would be really important. Making sure that our captains know how to pick a kid up, how to, be a great leader. And then it would also include the importance of understanding sexual violence, because honestly, I think this is a problem that we aren't educated enough on. There's a big gray area, including, substances and relationships, and consent that people really get messed up on in high school, which is really what I see the main cause in high school for this problem. So it would be all about the importance of sexual violence, and we would include bystander intervention, types of sexual violence, and as I said before, the gray area involving substances and relationships and consent. So instead of pointing a finger, we're more trying to educate, and we'd be using all of the curriculum that we would get for this meeting from a website called RAIN, the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization. So the whole point of that meeting would be so that the captains would be able to present the information in front of the team, and if it becomes difficult for them at any point, then we want the coaches there just so they can step in and inform. So we had a meeting with Salutary about this, and obviously Becker was backing the idea the whole time. He actually made the pledge for us, and they loved the idea. And so we're trying to get something started right now. We're planning to do a pilot with the football team, in which I'm going to stand up and talk about the importance of the education on the subject. And we're going to really see how that goes with the teammates and how they take it. And then at the end, we're going to hopefully have all my teammates sign the pledge, which I think would be a great pilot, see how this goes for the fall season, and then hopefully transition into actually getting the meeting going for the winter and spring seasons. And to be clear, this would be happening for all sports teams, not gender specific. On to the next, we have Valor. So we wanted to give everyone a couple of weeks to settle into the school routine. Obviously, coming off of that weird school year last year with online and then kind of bouncing back and forth, we wanted everyone to settle into being back all in, all the weird stuff going on. Catherine and Crystal are waiting on confirmation for a space, which I assume is the Arts Barn. So once we get that set up, we'll get that going back again. And then Unity Club. I'm running Unity Club alongside Katie Biner this year, who is the same person that I'm working on this pledge project with. Our first project in that is going to be a winter clothing drive for refugees coming into America from Afghanistan. And we're going to be doing that through Iris. Katie was lucky enough to work there for the summer and had some great connections. So next, the adjusting back to school. Honestly, for me, I mean, I'm not the type of person who's very anxious, but I've really enjoyed being back in school. Online was definitely a struggle for me. I'm a very social person. I love talking to my teachers, making relationships, and being able to see my friends throughout the day. So it's been really nice to be back in person, and so far I have no complaints. And by popular demand, Wellness Wednesday is still a thing, which I'm pretty sure that starts tomorrow. I may be wrong on that, but I'll let you know how that goes next meeting. And then one other thing that I really wanted to bring up was contact tracing in terms of sports, because how it goes is if you're vaccinated and you're contact traced, you're perfectly fine. You won't be taken out. But if you're not vaccinated, then you're going to be taken into quarantine for 10 days. So for the football team, which is really one thing that I've seen, which is really cool, is that I've seen several of my teammates miss practices to go get their vaccine just because, instead of taking themselves all out of school like they did last year, like the baseball team did last year, all the students took themselves out of school and did online. Instead, they're just taking the step to get vaccinated. That way they can stay in school and play on their team the whole time. That's all I've got for you guys tonight. If you guys got any questions, feel free to let me know.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Darren.
A couple quick ones. Have you guys met with Mr. Salutary, the two of you yet?
Not yet. I'm going to get that meeting set up very soon.
Mhm.
Cool. It's a nice, it's been a crazy first couple of weeks, but it's a nice thing to have the ear of the principal like that. So
Definitely.
when you do go in with asks like you had a couple of weeks ago, that he knows you, and really it'll be another good contact for you to have as well.
Yeah, with Principal Salutary, I'm in like another student council kind of group. So we've already worked on projects together, which is comforting.
Yeah.
So that'll be a really resource, and he's super like open to everything, which is like, because some principals kind of shoot down your idea and they say yeah, but it doesn't really go anywhere.
Right.
But yeah, Mr. Salutary does a really good job with like actually following through on that kind of stuff.
I'd
Awesome.
love it if you guys, once you get a little bit further along in this consent or whatever
Yep.
it turns into concept, for you to come to PTO and talk to the parents about that. I think that's so important to spread the word about what you have created and how it's moving forward. And you can talk to Mr. Salutary about getting on an agenda for that when it feels like an appropriate time, maybe down the road in December or January, when you have a little bit more information about it all, but would love to have you talk to the parents.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Once we get everything ironed out and really get the meeting set up and the pilot over and done with,
Right.
I would love to do that. That would be great.
That's great. Mr. Salutary can make it happen.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Of course.
Hey, what's the
Scott.
vibe in the school from your point of view, both of you? How's it feel?
Rebe, I'm going to let you take that one first.
Thanks, Sarah. It feels, the vibe's pretty good. Like what Darian was saying, it was a pretty good transition back to school. The one worry that at least I have is I think people are so, doesn't matter what kind of classes you're taking, everything's kind of semi-rigorous, like pretty rigorous actually in the high school. So you don't even need to be in many APs to be having kind of a stressful time. And the thing I notice most with that is that people are so focused on their grades and everything, which is great, but they're not really like, we've kind of lost the sense of community a little bit. Like, yeah, we're social with each other, but I think sometimes you get so wound up in it that it becomes so competitive in the atmosphere where it kind of turns like, I don't know if toxic is the right word, that's a little harsh, but it does turn definitely kind of not as like relaxed as it could be. Everybody seems, at least in my classes, I'm sure Darren can speak to this too, but like everyone does seem at some point like we're like fighting against each other to get the best grades and everything, which although personal motivation is super important, there reaches a point when it's like we've kind of lost the sense of, okay, but we all have similar problems. We're all going through this together. And instead it's more of like, who can come out on top, and whatever will bring you to the top grade wise and socially is something that many students exploit a teeny bit to a certain extent. But other than, I don't want to complain about it too much because I still need to think of some solutions to that. But other than that, I don't know, Dare, do you have anything to say on that, or?
Well, coming off of a school year where everything was online, and my math class last year was everything was open note because if you were at home you could cheat, so it definitely is a little bit more of a competitive environment because people are a lot more worried about their grades. They really have to put in the work to study for their tests, and it is a little bit difficult, but I mean, that's just something you have to get used to. That's how school really is. We had that off year for COVID, so we have to get back to normal. It's something that I'm struggling with. I've had more homework, I think, in the past week than I did all of last year. But it's the sad realization that that's what school is. But other than that, I think everyone's much, much happier being in school than they were on their computers. So.
Rob, I interrupted you twice, I think. You were going to say something. Rob?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
No, you didn't interrupt me. I was thinking. So I got two questions for Scott, really. So thank you guys, because I was, even though I have somebody in the high school, it's always good to kind of hear what the general thought is in an arena, So my question, Scott, is, has Madison Youth and Family Services developed something to deal with the kids who are 100% online? So here, before you answer, it kind of stretches into what Darian was talking about with the vaccines. It's cool that the players are getting their vaccinations so that they can play football. but a lot of them are pissed off because they have to get this vaccination that they did not want. So there's a lot of forced, I don't know what the word is. There's a lot of forced action right now in this new year. You're being forced to return to a place you may not want to be. You're being forced to put something into you that you may not want to have. That develops a lot of emotional chaos. What are Madison Youth and Family Services doing in regards to that? Because I'm not going to speak for either of them, but if I was a 16, 17-year-old kid in great shape and healthy as an ox, I don't want you to stick nothing in my body. And if I don't feel comfortable going to school, I don't know how you're going to force me to. That's where my brain goes. And maybe that's because of who I am. I'm just curious, are we seeing more need for something in that area?
Well, I mean, I think you're bringing up what's really the central debate of our time. The vaccinations front and center, the actions the federal government, are taking, what's being translated to the states. So I think, and not getting into that larger debate and whether it should or shouldn't be. Your question is, what are we doing about it and how are we supporting the community? So first of all, to say, the schools are in the middle of this, and I know at the very top end, from the admin council and the superintendent all the way down to the teachers and, school facilities, school staff, everybody I think is sort of in the middle of this and dealing with this. So it's in part in terms of how the school, administratively, and then, by school building, I think they're all taking approaches to help students feel more comfortable, speak directly to parents about their concerns, and then, the rest of it needs to play out over time in terms of how parents feel and how youth feel. So I don't know that we're doing any specific programming to that. All of our services, our clinical services, our staff that are in the schools, we're all providing, supports, conversations. It's showing up. Our clinical referrals here have gotten, gotten numerous over the last week or so. And typically September, you have a period that's a little quieter as school gets started, and you don't really see the referrals come in until school really kicks into gear. I think what we're seeing this year is there's a steady, sort of consulting and referral over the summer. That was a little more than past years, and now kicking in much more quickly as this year gets going, which again, it's not surprising. Like, we knew this was coming up. So, our role here is to support parents and youth deal with these things, and whether it's manifesting as anxiety or in behavior, or it's just tough decisions to make, that we're here to help people do that.
I know we're running kind of short on time, so I'm going to move it, but I do want to add a couple comments to that. You also can help your children remember that, your teachers and administrators were enforcing rules that we didn't make, but that they are the rules. And so, we have a mask policy in the school. It's not a debate. We're not choosing political sides. The people that are enforcing this, some believe in masks outside of school and some don't. But if I ask you to put a mask on, we can escalate to 10 very, very quickly, or you can pull the mask over your nose and follow the rules. So, we've had really great compliance. We haven't gotten into issues with students. We ask them very courteously to put their masks on, and students for the most part have been really compliant. Teachers we don't want to be teaching with masks, and we don't want our students to be learning with masks, but that's the world we're in right now. And so, from my perspective, the vibe has been so much better than it was last year, in terms of the teacher's energy level, the student's energy level, and the general way you look at the classroom. Kids seem to be very much like they used to be. Not 100%, but a lot closer than they were last year. Even if they're being forced or asked to do things that they'd rather not be doing at this point. So I'm going to move us along because I can tell from my chair that we've been here for a while. So we're going to move this. We were lucky enough to get a quick unofficial liaison report from Jean at the beginning of the meeting. So I think we'll go and ask if Andrea can give us another unofficial report on the committee that you've been working on. That would be terrific.
Sure. I've been working on the ad hoc affordable housing committee in Madison. It's been a fascinating, very interesting experience. We've had some changes in the participants of this committee. Originally, our town planner, Dave Anderson, was a central figure in this committee, and he's left. We have a chairwoman and several members that are liaisons from other boards, such as the senior committee, senior citizens committee, and the Madison Foundation, and I'm trying to think of the others. We have every town, all of the 169 towns of Connecticut have to come up with a report by June. And it's just a plan of how their town plans to move towards affordable housing. And so we spent a lot of time educating ourselves, reading about it, listening to speakers. We are part of a group of 15 towns. They call it a SCROG, these initials again, that go on and on. But we want to make sure that the plan is specific to the needs of Madison. And we do have a consultant who's also working with these 15 towns. And so we're really trying to make sure that, again, the plan will be tailor-made for the needs of Madison. We're working on a survey with the consultant to be given fairly soon. We've met with lots of town leaders and leaders of churches and synagogue and other groups, asking for their ideas and what they think Madison needs and what it could look like. I also would welcome any of your opinions, ideas. Please let me know if you have some ideas on what you think the needs are in Madison for affordable housing. And we're trying to, the plan, it's just a plan. It's not actually putting the plan into action. So the committee is working on this plan, and we're hoping that we will be able to get people to fill out the survey. We're going to have educational forums with people to attend and ask questions. And that's where we are now. We don't currently have a lot of affordable housing in Madison. We have 1.67% of our housing is affordable housing, and they kind of are hoping for a move towards 10%, but that's just, it's not a hard goal to reach. It's just a goal that can be reflected in the plan. But if any of you have questions, I'd be glad to answer as best as I can. It's an ongoing. We've taken tours of affordable housing in other towns. We've also, actually tomorrow night, we're going to visit one site where the Hope Partnership, which is planning a site in Madison by Cottage Road, a certain number of units of their development will be for affordable housing. So we've, it's been a very interesting committee, and we will be, as I said, getting some new members because a few of the members of the committee have left. So.
Any questions for Andrea? Jeremy, I appreciate you being here. Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate you being here. If you're okay holding off on your liaison report until the next meeting, that would be great. Unless there's something that that you'd like to share or that you feel is important to share tonight.
Yeah, just real quick. If
Sure.
everyone could tell everyone, please lock your cars.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a big problem throughout the state of stolen vehicles, and we're making it very easy for them to steal it by keeping the keys in the vehicle and your car unlocked. So if you talk to anyone else tonight, please just tell them to lock your vehicle. So that's the only report I have.
That was actually a question I had on my list for you, because you're reading about this in the patch, and it seems like people are getting more brazen in their attempts also.
Yeah, it's a statewide problem. We're dealing with juveniles, and unfortunately, I know that's that's a whole nother topic to speak on about the juvenile judicial system and everything. So please, everyone, if you could tell anyone, just please lock your vehicles and lock up your stuff.
Okay. On that note, I don't have any additional chairperson comments that I haven't made already, but the floor is open now if anybody has any comments or questions based on what you've heard tonight, or anything you want to share with the group.
I just had one question. Sorry, I was late.
Not at all.
I'm not sure, Scott, if it's for you when you speak to TJ, or if it's for Darian and Reby when they meet with TJ. But I know last year they were really unable to do the club fair, and clubs are starting, obviously, and you have freshmen and sophomores who have no idea about what clubs are. I heard they didn't think that they could do the club fair again because of COVID. So I just think we need to get some sort of communication out there, however we're going to do it, whether it's a virtual fair or people sitting in the lunchroom. I mean, kids are going to lunch, so there has to be some way to get this communication out. And I don't think a paper on a wall that we hope kids might see to feel part of a community is enough.
So one thing that I've heard of in the school is during one of the Wellness Wednesdays, the head of the language department, Miss Saguzzi, is trying to get up a club fair set up outside so that anyone can go around and do that outside. I'm not sure if that's going to be this Wellness Wednesday or the next, but I'm definitely going to talk to her and Mr. Saiteri about that, figure out when that's going on, because I have a couple of clubs that are, lacking attendance that we could definitely use some people in.
It sounds to me like, I was talking to Melissa Bleddo, who had talked to TJ, and it sounds like they are trying to do the fair, and that club enrollment's been down this year. I think actually both of our student reps spoke to this, that sense of community and maybe that focus on just getting going and getting back into class. So the club fair, I think, is something that they are very interested in doing and wanting to do outside for, obvious reasons. Great question. Great question. It makes up for the fact that you were late, Jessica.
I was just talking.
Sorry, I got thrown off.
No.
When you work for the company that makes the vaccine, every 24 hours, your company signs you off the network and then signs you back on. It seems to always be when you're on a call, even at night.
Did you catch the feed? Did you get most?
I did. I could see the words still. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Just so you know, I posted a quick link. We used to read announcements to students every period too, and we'd be announcing clubs. And some teachers did it better than others, but that was at least one way to do it. And they used to also announce them over the PA. They do none of that anymore. And so it's not a push system, but if you want to pull, there's a daily announcement posted every day. I put a link in the chat, and
Okay.
You'd have to go looking for it. but clubs do announcements through that. And
Okay.
it's not very updated right now. I mean, there's not a lot of stuff there right now, but hands on stage meeting, like there's an announcement about that. So if you're going to be more proactive, that's at least one avenue. It's on the students link on the Hand High School page.
Yeah, I just heard what Raby said about community, and I do think it was
Yes.
an issue last year. It'll continue to be an issue, and some kids are shyer than others. And I
Yeah.
just think you need to hook into something.
Yeah.
And not everyone plays a sport. Even ones who play sports don't always feel connected. So I just think it's super important as we sort of find our way back in this post-COVID. Well, I mean, we're still in it, but better environment.
Couldn't agree more.
And also, can I say one more thing to Jessica's point too? Thank you so much for that, by the way. That's so true. But also, like, to add on to that, just super briefly, I was talking to Mr. Salutary about in a group that we had about, like, you know, the classic inviting someone to sit with you at lunch. And there are a lot of shy people at hand. And the extroverts kind of, I think in high school are more recognized, obviously, than the introverts are. But I kind of distinguish between, like, just an idea maybe for next time of kind of making posters or something that said, don't ask someone like, oh, do you want to come sit with us? Like, you're on a different level than them, but ask someone, change the question and say, can I sit with you? So you're putting the kind of the ball in their park instead of being like, us, like, I already have a group. Do you want to join my group? It just kind of seems a little bit more intimidating than, I know that's kind of an idea that we can share more on next time, but just a thought from your point, Jessica, that it's like, I think it's really valuable to reframe that question and for a lot of things, and just put it in their court saying, can I sit with you, instead of this. Anyways, I just thought I'd bring that up.
I think it's great, and I'd love to talk about it more at the next meeting.
Thanks, Ruby. Anybody else have any comments or questions or anything for the good of the order? All right, then, having completed all the business of the board this month, the meeting's adjourned. Everybody have a great month.
Thanks, everyone. See you next month.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, everybody.